This is a Shiva themed episode.
Shiva is the consciousness. He's more about, understanding the self. But without the blessing of Shakti, I don't think one can attain or even aspire to attain Shiva.
What is mantra?
When you practice a mantra, one of the saying in Sanskrit is Devta mantra ke adheen hote hain, meaning they are subject to mantras. So when you chant mantra, you invoke such a powerful word that the devas have to come and listen to you. You see demons invoke Lord Shiva, invoke Brahma, invoke Vishnu and ask for their wishes. Do you really think that the Supreme Almighty did not know the purpose behind the invocation was destruction? But
Damn, dude.
before you begin any Rudrabhishek, if it's a Karma Kanda priest who is following the very, very, very nuances of the practice, he has got to do a Gayatri Pranayam.
How do you inhale it? Like you chant it in your head in one inhalation?
Yes. One, when you're in the temple, like you call it, or the third eye, you're installing it, then you're taking it out.
This is the first time hearing about this. I really believe that Doctor Strange is based on Tantra concepts for bending reality, bending time.
Tantra is using the Shakti around you. Shakti Sadhana is very important in Tantra. You can get started with...
We've created so many Shiva podcasts, right? Therefore, at this stage, in the middle of 2025, all we can do different is bring you an even deeper, even more practical episode. This is all about Shiva Sadhana. Of course, we'll cover some of the basics. But this episode is for every end user, every listener that wishes to invite Shiva more deeply into their own lives. We're going to try understanding Shiv Sadhana, the Shiv Puran, Shiv Mantras, as well as the practical aspect of what praying to Lord Shiva brings into your life. The guest today is a very dear friend of mine who's a perfect example of someone who's utilized the power of sadhana and spiritual growth in order to fuel their own career's journey. He's one of the most celebrated young entrepreneurs in Nepal, and every time I speak to him, I can't believe that he's just 25 years old. Sukritya Khatiwada is publicly known as the founder of his company, Rudraksha. But if you know him personally, you know that he is a fountain of information when it comes to Sanatan Dharma. If you've not watched our previous episode with him, that's all right. But make sure you watch this one and make sure you learn along with us if you wish to pray more deeply to Shiva, if you wish to begin your own slightly more sharpened spiritual journey, then take notes from this episode. It's Sukritya Bhai on TRS. My brother, how are you, Sukritya Bhai?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great to be speaking to you once again, man.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. Really, the conversations that we have, it I think gives me a good reflection into my spiritual journey as well. So it's always a pleasure talking to you. It really takes me to another spectrum in my spiritual journey.
Yeah, we both go to the place that we go to every single day during sadhana.
Yes.
But through a conversation instead
Correct.
of through the sadhana.
Correct.
Do you think conversations like this where we are centered around the topic of Shiva actually are sadhana in themselves?
I think so, yes. I like to believe that there are spaces in our mind which we don't visit regularly. Conversations, the questions, make us go into the depths that we don't even know that exist. So this is kind of like there is three part in any kind of conversation, Shravana, Manana, and Nidhyasanana. So Shravana is all about listening, active listening, the kind of listening that you do. You listen so much, with so much care. The questions you have are not generic. It's very specific to the topic. So that is Shravana. Manana is all about thinking, all about, applying the knowledge that you have, contemplating and understanding. And Nidhyasanana is all about internalizing the things. So I think conversation is one part of sadhana, which allows us to really dive deeper into what we have learned.
You're easily one of the most fascinating people I've had on the show, pardon me saying this, but primarily because of your age.
Yeah.
And also definitely the depth of conversation that comes out every time I meet you.
Yes.
But man, I still can't believe. How old are you?
Now I'm 25.
25.
Yes.
That's you don't hear 25-year-olds speak the way you do with the kind of knowledge and depth that you have, man.
Yeah.
And I repeat what I said in the last episode, that absolutely loves celebrating entrepreneurs who are rooted in the spiritual realms of our land.
Yeah. Thank you.
So first of all, once again, congrats on all the success.
Thank you so much.
I do a little, bow down to Shivji behind you who's making all this happen for you.
Absolutely. I always am grateful, and I'm always, thankful to my ancestors, to my family, to my parents, and Lord Shiva, who has always been guiding, Maha Shakti, who has given me the energy to pursue Shiva. Because without the blessing of Shakti, I don't think one can attain or even aspire to attain Shiva. So Shiva, Shakti, I'm very grateful for that.
What's the difference in the blessings from the two?
I think Shiva is the consciousness. He's more about, understanding the self, but the mere desire to understand, the mere effort you take to understand, the energy that requires for one to even reflect or even have the want to reflect is all about Shakti. There is a saying that Shiva is Shava without Shakti. He is almost non-existent, or he's inactive without Shakti. So the feeling of Shakti sadhana and Shiva sadhana is very different, but Shakti is the path to Shiva.
The feeling of the Shiv sadhana is different from the feeling of Shakti sadhana.
Yes, sadhana, one of the forms of sadhana is bhakti yoga. There's a couple of ways one can perform sadhana.
What is sadhana?
Sadhana is a relentless pursuit, a focused pursuit, a very disciplined pursuit of the ultimate, of Brahma. See, human life is all about search. As you start to get better in searching, you tend to realize that what you're searching for is within. It's Atma, it's Brahma, because the Brahma is part of the Parabrahma or Sadashiva. So you're trying to get closer to Shiva by understanding yourself, elevating the understanding of yourself. That process of you elevating is spiritual transformation. So you're transforming yourself, getting rid of the negatives, accepting the positives. That transformation leads you ultimately to yoga or union with Shiva, or the deity that you aspire to unionize with. The process of union, in my understanding, has multiple ways, because Sanatana Dharma, meaning it has no end. It is an eternal Dharma. It has so many ways. Some of us through bhakti yoga. Some of us through jnana yoga. Some of us through dhyana yoga. Some of us through karma yoga. Bhakti yoga primarily is the most difficult, even though it is the most straightforward in my understanding. Bhakti yoga is all about surrender. You have to surrender completely to the deity, completely to the quest of search. Bhakti is all about bhav. That's why we call it bhakti bhav. You can't have bhakti without you feeling something that is not from this universe. It is something that is beyond. Where do you feel these? Sometimes it is through a spiritual experience. Sometimes it is when you're visiting a temple, you close your eyes, you bow down. The energy there is different. You can just feel it, you can't describe it. Bhakti yoga is that form. Second, through jnana yoga. The thing that we're doing here is more about jnana yoga. We're sharing knowledge. You've learned so much. I've learned a little bit, so much, and we're sharing that. That is Gyan Yoga. Through philosophies, there's a lot of philosophers out there, a lot of people who contemplate, just ask questions, just question about life. These are all Gyan Yogas. These are all about, reading the books, reading the Puranas. There are a group of people who say, Puran knowledge or Vedic knowledge is just reading books. It is nothing much. It is no depth into it, right? They tell about all about experience. But I think both of them, Sanatana Dharma is eternal. It is vast. Both of them have a similar path into the pursuit of the truth. So Jnana Yoga is all about elevating your knowledge. Then there comes Dhyana Yoga. Some people are very inclined into meditations. We like to close our eyes, take deep breaths, control our breath, do pranayams, the ayams of pranas, right? And try to elevate our knowledge of the self, because we have to remember, if we understand the droplet of the ocean, we can understand the truth about the entire ocean, because when we understand ourselves, understand the Parabrahma because we come from the Parabrahma. So Dhyan Yoga is all about that. And lastly, Karma Yoga. We see some people who tend to live a life without any, desire of their own, who live a very selfless life. We see them trying to renunciate. That is more about Karma Yoga, karmic cleansing.
Can we begin this podcast at mantras?
Yeah. So mantra is made out of two words, man and tra. Tra in Sanskrit is instrument. Man is mind, right? So when you use your mind as an instrument, tra, it becomes mantra. Similarly, tantra, yantra. The tra is constant. Tra is the instrument. So when you use your mind as a instrument, it becomes mantra, right? There is two forms of mantra in Sanatana Dharma. One is a full mantra where you can see meanings in the mantra. For example, the Trimbakam mantra. Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvaharakam Iva Vandananam Mrityor Mukshaya Maha Mrityunjaya. When you use the full mantra, the mantra itself has a meaning. It is all about, invoking the Lord Shiva, the Trambakar, the three-eyed Lord Shiva, to give us the Pushtivardhanam, give us good health and elevate us from the fear of death, right? So a full mantra. Some of us have bij mantras. These mantras might not be apparently, mean anything, but they invoke these sounds, the sounds that resonate the beginning of creation. These are sounds that have evolved, that yet not had meaning, but invoke energies that are beyond our comprehensions. Om is known as the Pranava mantra. It is the eternal mantra. It is the bij mantra. It is a bij mantra. It does not have an apparent meaning, but when invoked, it invokes Lord Shiva, the creator itself, right? Om. Om Hom Namah. Om Hrim Klim Shim Chamundaya Biche. Om Srim Hrim Klim Glom Gam Ganapataya Varavarada Sarvajanam Vyavashamanaya Swaha for Ganapati. So these kind of bij mantras that have bij, like Om Hrim Klim, which don't have apparent meaning, these are mantras as well. So when you practice a mantra, you're invoking Lord. But the funny part about this, or the interesting part about this, is you see demons or daityas or danavs, just for better understanding, I'm using these words, invoke Lord Shiva, invoke Brahma, invoke Vishnu, and ask for their wishes. Do you really think that the Supreme Almighty did not know the purpose behind the invocation was destruction? They did. But one of the saying in Sanskrit is, or you can even understand this in Hindi, is Devta mantra ke adhin hote hain, meaning they are subject to mantras. So when you chant mantra, you invoke such a powerful word that the devtas have to come and listen to you. So it is a very, very, very powerful word, or combinations of word, which might or might not have apparent meaning to them, but do invoke energies that the universe is made out of. If you look into science, you know that all creations are frequencies. Mantras invoke those frequencies of the entire universe and attract energies that you can use. Use might seem, again, like a material word, using, but that you can harvest. We are energy harvesters. You harvest, wind to create electricity. You harvest water to create electricity. You are everything. We are harnessing a form of energy to create something. Mantra is harnessing those universal energies into creating what you call as dharma, artha, kama, moksha. All four purushartha get siddhi. Dharma meaning you become you know the purpose. Now you become more responsible. As a father, you become a better father. As an entrepreneur, you become a better entrepreneur. As a singer, you sing well. You are not getting distracted. Mantra gives you that. Artha. Bhukti and mukti are always connected. You said something spiritual began this podcast, which is today, right? But it has also given material growth in every aspects, right? Because bhukti and mukti always walk together. It's not two different things. Material success is always a byproduct of spiritual discipline. So dharma, artha, kama. When you enjoy something that is earned through dharma, through righteousness, through good act, it does not attach you. You can enjoy it, but you can also be without the enjoyment, because the true enjoyment was during the act, not the outcome. So that is kama. And moksha is when you become, greater, or you outlive that entire process, and now you are evolved into a different place. Moksha does not just mean to die and end. It means that that cycle of what it was, what while it was fun, now you have evolved. Now the next chapter of life becomes you have attained mukti from that cycle. So mantra, in a single word, holds the instrument, the power of what we call as reciting these, universal energies and sounds.
I think this conversation is going to be a bit of a ping pong
Yeah.
equation between hyper deep and hyper Sanatani and hyper practical and
Yeah.
modern.
Yeah.
So, because we spoke about the Sanatani aspects of mantra, I'm going to bring it down to a very practical level
Yeah.
for Gen Zs now.
Yeah.
Okay. I've spoken to multiple materially successful people on the show, billionaires, actors, cricketers, and everyone believes one thing in common, which is that your success or your story or the brand you build in front of the world is an outcome of your own routines.
Mhm.
Now, while we speak about spirituality and spiritual practice, one of the most practical practices that a young person can adopt in order to benefit their career
Mhm.
is to simply give themselves 10 to 20 minutes before going to bed.
Yeah.
Sit up in your bed, try keeping your back straight, breathe in through your nose, and let out an oh. And just keep doing that.
Yeah.
Ideally for 20 minutes, ideally longer. At some point, you'll feel calm enough to allow your mind to welcome sleep into your own reality.
Mhm.
And the sleep you'll experience will be much deeper.
Yeah.
It's a very practical way of sleeping better at night if you're willing to give yourself 10 to 20 minutes
Yeah.
before going to bed, but you can do it at any time of the day.
Mhm.
My point is that doing this over a month will change your reality. This is something that can actually be experienced by yourself.
Yeah.
And we spoke about Om chanting. This was the first practical meditation that I ever tried in my life.
Mhm.
And I remember the first time that I did it, it was a 20-minute long meditation session. I wasn't thinking too much about the 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just staying with each of those ohms. Thoughts were coming up in my head.
Yeah.
I was allowing those thoughts to come and go and trying to focus on the mantra constantly.
Yeah.
Lots of people say that they're not able to meditate because they end up seeing too many negative things in their own head, or they end up facing some kind of moment of shame from their past in their own head usually. The way I look at it, I think that this is normal and this is your brain flushing out the toxins. If you can get past this 1 week of lifting that heavy weight for the first time, then in the following 3 weeks of that 1 month, that heavy weight is not going to feel so heavy.
Correct.
And Om chanting is one of the most basic forms of mantra chanting that you can experience yourself. That's when you can actually experience the power of mantras.
Yeah.
But because this is a Shiva themed episode, you already brought up one of my favorite mantras, which is the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. This is something I discovered very late in life. Almost to the point where I don't think it's very Gen Z friendly because it's a very powerful mantra.
Yeah.
It's almost like a spell. It will change your reality.
Yeah.
For me, the way I brought it into my life was every day when I was showering, I would play the Shankar Mahadevan 108 time Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. There's some magic in that.
Yeah.
Or find a rendition of the mantra that you enjoy.
Yeah.
But listen to it like music. That's how you can initially get into these like longer mantras. I would say that the next step is to understand the meaning of the mantra, especially if it's a long one like this. Understand what you're chanting. Understand the deity that it represents. Go deeper into the knowledge of the deity.
Yeah.
I think that Shiva is one of those deities which a lot of Gen Zs are drawn to, especially because the outcome of worshipping Shiva is a calm mind.
Yeah.
And everyone needs a sense of calm in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me? Do you disagree about anything I said?
I agree with you on a lot of things, right? Meaning mantra is definitely one of the most powerful things and most practical and the most easy things for one to begin, right? Mantra is a part of bhakti yoga. So without that belief, a person would be very reluctant in practicing mantra. So believe you're asking someone, chanting the Om mantra and feeling that it's really powerful. But even wanting to chant it, I ask people to just visit temples, listen to the aartis, right? When I was walking to the studio today, I was welcomed to the studio with the aarti, right? anyone who is in a close proximity to that temple would want to listen more, would want to know more. So visit these places. If mantras are very hard for you to, understand or experience the power of it, go to these places, go to these energy centers that we call temples, and then, listen to these mantras. Once you do that, very practical advice, listen to, mantras like songs. There are some mantras that you can listen to like that. Some mantras might not be very suitable in order for you to listen to it. Like the Gayatri mantra, for example, is not a mantra that we say it out loud. Is a mantra that is chanted inside, right? A lot of people listen to the mantras outside. See, things that are done without knowledge is always okay, because Bhagwan is bhav. He listens to our bhav more than the rules and restrictions. But once you know that these are the mantras that you want to keep inside of you. There are some mantras that you can listen to, like the Hanuman Chalisa. Probably one of the most played YouTube videos in the world is the Hanuman Chalisa, which a lot of people would benefit greatly from listening, and then slowly starting to understand the meaning, then slowly starting to recite it, and then slowly, you don't need the music, you can recite it on your own, right? So that process is very, very practical. I also like to say that mantra sadhana, like any other sadhana, is a very long process. Be steady with it, be consistent with it, and don't overload yourself. You gave a very good example about people, feeling that soreness through workout in the first week, right? So if you go to the gym, you have had a long break, or you're going to for the first time, and you try to lift the heaviest weight, you might be able to push a few reps, but you will eventually feel very sore, and next day you'll feel like your chest, your triceps, your biceps are starting to fall off. That's the kind of feeling. So even in a spiritual sense, you've, like I said, not nurtured your spiritual self as much. You might be 35, you might be 40, but if you have never chanted a single mantra, your spiritual self is still 5 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, doesn't know much. Nurture it slowly. It's not going to take a lot of time, like building muscles, but consistent practice is required there. So like you said, let the negative thoughts come in. It's natural. It's a cleansing process. You have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with your past. Bhoot. We're scared of bhoot, right? We say bhoot. Bhoot is all about the past. That is bhoot. When you get scared about the past karmas, that is bhoot coming to you. Bhoot is not going to come in a in a sari, or in a gown, in a coat, and scare you. It's your actions that you did in the past that you regret today. That's the bhoot for you. That's what you're scared of. Let the bhoot come, because your mantra is going to protect you from the bhoot, right? You're doing that to cleanse that bhoot of yours. And then you slowly evolve into what I said is Bij mantra. Now meanings become irrelevant. Now the energies become relevant. For Bij mantras, you need tools. You need tools like Rudraksha. You need initiations. You need very powerful tools that can, help you understand and also initiate you in that process. Shiva Purana talks about Bij mantra with Rudraksha only. So when the mention of Rudraksha comes, then the mention of Bij mantra comes, because as you get to that spiritual level where you can attract Rudraksha into your life, then you start to be initiated into these Bij mantras. But for a Zenzi who's just starting out, a practical mantra of Om Namah Shivaya, and don't see, one of the tendencies that I've seen is now people want to do 108 mantras, right? So you start on this journey. Then you want to do mantras for Ganesh. You want to do mantra for Devi. You want to do mantra for Shiva. You want to do mantra for Ram. You want to do mantra for Vishnu. You want to do mantra for Hanuman. You want to be, which deity are you going to leave back? You don't want to leave back anyone, because now you're starting, right? You're fresh. You want to hit triceps, biceps, chest. I'm giving a material example because we're materially more, we think materially. So I'm connecting spirituality with material, which is wrong to do, but I'm just doing that for better understanding, right? But you don't hit all of these body parts in the same day, do you? No, because one, you don't have time. Time is very precious. I see people struggle because they set too high of a bar spiritually for themselves when they start to begin their spiritual journey. They want to do all the mantras 108 times, then they fail to do even one. So they create a huge barrier. You have to allocate at least 5 hours in the morning or 5 hours in the evening to do all of these mantras, because you want to chant them clearly, right? So as you evolve, it's become a breath. It becomes the language of the mind. But when you're starting out, I don't even say 20 minutes. I just say like 5 minutes, maybe 5 mantras, maybe 3 mantras. Just say Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Just 3 mantras and sleep, right? When I was young, my mother always used to give me this advice of, hey, thank Pashupatinath, thank Lord Shiva, thank your ancestors, and sleep. So I used to say, Jos Pashupatinath, Jos, and I slept, right? I was not doing these mantra sadhanas, but that feeling of being thankful to the Lord for the day, thankful to Lord Shiva for the day that he gave me, being grateful and sleeping, gave you that sense. And then as you evolve, you're not just okay with just thanking with because he's blessing you so much, you feel compelled to give him more of your time. Then you start to do like 5 mantras, then you become even more compelled, then you start to evolve. So let yourself evolve, but don't set a too high of a boundary where, too high of a bar where you are, first you are too, you don't have the time, second you are feeling too sore, like you said, you're starting, but you're not being able to do a sadhana. Because sadhana is, like I said in the beginning of this podcast, it is a relentless and a disciplined pursuit. It is not a one day marathon, sprint. It's a marathon for the rest of your life. So if 3 mantras is your sweet spot, do it, but do it every single day. Last time we talked about, even doing manas puja in the plane. We talked that even when you're flying, you're doing puja. So that is a form of sadhana. You're not letting your material circumstances or environment around you disrupt your sadhana. So that is what I recommend to the younger generations, is make spirituality more practical and do it. Just do it.
I also meet a lot of younger people. I'd probably classify Gen Zs as born post 97,
Mhm.
roughly.
Mhm.
So people 26 and younger.
Yeah.
This is for them. So I'd love for you to kind of take every aspect of this conversation, every chapter, as a kind of message for Gen Zs.
I mean, see, you can't tell. For some people, they're outwardly spiritual. They talk about spirituality. They can share their feelings very well. For some, when they go to the temple, they're deeply, surrendered to Lord Shiva. I can see that in their eyes. I can see that in their feelings. I think the spiritual upbringing that we have through our parents does, have a seed of spirituality. It just needs nurturing. In today's day, as a 25 year old talking about this topic, I feel like our society has been more material. We are moving in more towards material. Probably 10 years ago, we were less material or knew less about materialism than today. We are more capitalistic. Materialism is very cool in today's day. So what our parents, because they want the best for us, aspire to do is have a material mindset to us, right? They tell us, son, later have a car maybe better than mine, right? Their dreams about us, what are their wishes for us, is to have a comfortable life. What's the comfort there? It's a material comfort, right? Meaning have a better bed, have a better room, have a better house, have a better car. Everyone in based on their socioeconomic background has an aspiration to be better materially. How many of us have an aspiration to be better spiritually? Unless we have a spiritual experience, unless we come from a Vedic family with generations of spirituality inbuilt in the day-to-day life, I think our aspirations to be more spiritual is dying. Our aspirations to be more material is going up. So materially we're more comfortable. I think 10 years ago compared to today, I think we're materially more comfortable, right? We live in a better place. We have better air conditioning. We have even the granular things like ordering a taxi is even convenient for the Gen Z today than what it was before. But spiritually and mentally, are we nurturing? Are we making the world a better place for our spiritual self to evolve, to develop, to get the nurture? Are we planting those seeds early? I think that is why emotionally we are less evolved. Spiritually we're less evolved, or a little bit confused, I would like to say, right? Then materially, I think to a 25-year-old, if you ask about the material, about the financial market or the stock exchange today, then 10 years ago, I think they would have a much better idea, much better answers. They would know much more about cryptocurrency than what a 35-year-old would, right? So materially, you see that evolution. Spiritually, you don't, because you become what the society, the culture wants you to become. Our culture is more material today than spiritual. So in my consultations, one-on-one consultations that I do, I find parents that ask me, my child, I've given them everything, is struggling emotionally. struggling with finding their identity, finding their spiritual balance. Emotional fluctuations are happening. Even if I was a parent, I would probably want my kid to succeed materially. But would I be inclined to, take spirituality in parallel to materialism? That is where I think we are lacking a little bit.
Got it. I have these friends who run a podcast. It's called the Untriggered Podcast. It's a very Gen Z oriented show. They had Acharya Prashant on the show as a guest recently. I was watching a bit of it, and the host, Amin, who's also a friend of mine, he brought up a very valid point. He said that nowadays at Gen Z house parties, when you bring up the word spirituality, there's lots of people who shudder or retract because, and I think this is an American phenomenon that's spread to Indian urban centers. I do think Untriggered is a representation of urban India, but not all of India.
Yeah.
If you go in the interiors of the country, you'll see a lot of Desi Gen Zs actually becoming hyper spiritual and going back to Sanatan Dharma.
Yes.
But it's in the urban centers where people are not willing to understand Sanatan Dharma more deeply. Of course, I'm having a very generalized angle on seeing this here. They're not willing to have these open conversations about spirituality because the word spirituality has a negative connotation for many social circles now.
Yes.
Like maybe he's talking the truth. Maybe all Gen Zs shudder when it comes to spiritual conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the truth is. And then the next day I meet people like yourself, Sukritya, who are using the power of spirituality to fix their own heads, build their own businesses, and build the future of their own communities.
Yeah.
So tell me honestly, in your eyes, what's an objective truth when it comes to urban Desi Gen Zs?
I think there's two, subgroups to that as well. One is people who are very spiritual, might not talk about spirituality, like I said. They don't want to go to a house party and talk about spirituality. That does not mean they're not spiritual. That just means that spirituality is too sacred for them to bring into these conversations in a house party. We are better in talking about things that are relevant in the time frame than talking about everything because we meet each other more on social media nowadays. It's not that we're just meeting in house parties, we're meeting each other in different platforms. So maybe for spirituality they have a different friend group who is where they talk about spirituality, where they listen to different podcasts. They might not want to share that, and I understand the question is, why don't they want to share it? Maybe one reason is because it's not cool, because of the Western influence. The Western influence has caused us to believe that, even the word spirituality, see, spirituality and being religious is now very different, because religion is a little bit more expressive. Wearing the tika, wearing the, dhaga, wearing, expressing your beliefs is more religious. Now we have started to talk about spirituality more because it is more, it is more neutral in most sense. It does not express as widely or as openly as being a religious person. Spiritual person is more who's going to philosophize. Like I said, they're going to be more philosophical, but when they represent themselves, they're going to be neutral. You won't see a lot of religious aspects to them. You'll see a lot of spiritual aspects to them. So that's already a Western influence. We're not wearing tika just because we want to show that we're from a community. We're wearing tika because there's so much about calming the third eye. There's so much research. There's so much foundation, Vedic knowledge that has been installed into the things that we do naturally today. But spirituality, again, making religion a spirituality was one of the things that we have started doing. Now, again, spirituality in itself is also starting to be less cooler. And I think we have to introspect and realize again that we're in Kali Yuga. We're in a material yuga. We're in a place where material satisfaction oversees anything. Material success oversees anything. I meet people who are materially so successful, much successful than I am, right? But are they happy? Is the question. One of the reasons they're not happy is because of avidya. They're not aware of what they're searching for. Like I said, they're not aware of this spiritual truth. They're not aware that spirituality even exists. Spirituality is something that might be like secondhand, like second nature to you. Spirituality might be built into lifestyles for you. But for a lot of people, spirituality is an unknown territory. It's scary to be spiritual. It's scary when you hear someone having spiritual experiences. It's scary when you see someone talk about, renunciation. It's scary because you don't know. Aversion, dvesha, is a clash that has been mentioned, thousands of years ago. They don't want to be spiritual because they're scared, fear, right? Some of us don't know, avidya. Some of us think that we know everything. Now I'm spirituality nonsense, science is everything, or science is nothing, spirituality everything. So this kind of ego is also there, right? So a lot of different clashes, a lot of different obstacles to spirituality. I think Gen Z, one of the reasons we are, still evolving, I would say, is because number one, books are written in languages that we no longer read, written in ways that we no longer speak in, right? Accessibility to these platforms, to books, to these, one of the conversations that I was having is ChatGPT, right? The AI evolution has had its back, has the negatives, might not be sourced properly, the truth, the results might not be as accurate, but it has caused such a ease for people who are truly spiritual. You just ask about what is Sanatan Dharma. It's going to give you a lot of research and make things accessible. So I think now we have tools that are different than what the tools used to be. Before, it probably was books. Now we have AIs, but it is up to the person and their level of spiritual evolution to use these tools to aid them in their spiritual transformation journey.
Gotcha. I think my journey started when I was 22, and one of the things that helped me initially was the fact that, hey, if I meditate, it will have an effect on my brain, my mind, my body, and therefore it'll have an effect on my career.
Yeah.
And that's why I began meditating and eventually realized that there is a mystical aspect to what I am doing by just sitting down and chanting, oh, etc., etc., etc. One thing led to another, and that's why all this kind of content, these kind of conversations have happened, because once upon a time, I decided to sit down every day for 20 minutes and I decided to meditate. I decided to go down the pathway of what naturally interested me, which was stories of Sanatan Dharma and Sanatani philosophy.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to kind of give back to society through these podcasts as well. One of the things I'd like to highlight at the beginning of our conversation is an example of someone who I think is a material success superstar with a base of spirituality, and his name is Diljit Dosanjh.
Yeah.
Okay. I've podcasted with Diljit Dosanjh, and when you meet him off camera, he's always chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya in his breath all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what shows up in his voice and face. And that's why when people say that, hey, there's something that's changed about Diljit Dosanjh post 2020 and post the lockdown, I'm pretty sure I know what it is. I'm not going to say more than what I've already said, but let's just say something has spiritually opened up inside him.
Yeah.
I definitely want to share the fact that there is an Om Namah Shivaya in his breath. And that's one of the active practices that I've learned about through the podcast as well. That when it comes to mantras, for lack of better words to translate it into English, these are like little energy packets or spells.
Yeah.
For lack of better words.
Yeah.
And you have to chant a mantra until the mantra starts chanting you. And that's what I think Diljit Dosanjh has been able to reach in terms of a point in his own journey.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing the outcome of him reaching that point.
Yeah.
There have been countless moments in my life which are full of overthinking about different topics. And usually the overthinking is about a past pain or a future possibility. I think overthinking is one of the most common problems in today's day and age. A very practical Sanatani hack that's worked for me is that every time I go on an overthinking tangent, I submit that thought to my deity. So I literally visualize myself taking that thought and placing it at my deity's feet and saying, hey, now this is your problem, not mine. And the way I end up doing that is either by saying an Om Namah Shivaya in my head or an Om Namah Dattaya, which is for Dattatreya Bhagavan, because that's my childhood deity. And in your moments of overthinking or pain, you become a child on the inside. Which is why Om Namah Dattaya comes out pretty quick from my heart. but it's gradually turning into an Om Namah Shivaya as I grow older.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Om Namah Shivaya mantra to you.
Mhm.
Some of my deepest meditations have been outcomes of chanting Om Namah Shivaya in my own head.
Mhm.
And I'd spoken about this mantra to Rajarshi Nandi in detail. And he said that Om Namah Shivaya is an extremely powerful mantra, but one should know that you will be rushed towards a spiritual outcome through that mantra.
Mhm.
So rather than chanting Om Namah Shivaya, even if you just chant Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya in your head, without the Om, even that does the trick and you are able to connect to the deity.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing the ball at you.
Yeah.
So you can take over.
Om Namah Shivaya is a very powerful mantra, and I have a story, a little bit of a story with Om Namah Shivaya myself as well. When I was growing up with my grandfather, right?
Give some context. Who's your grandfather?
My grandfather is late Mr. Balaram Khatiwada, who was a Vedic practitioner, a Karmakanda priest, and he is the founder of Nepa Rudraksha, right? Along with my grandmother, Mahalakshmi Khatiwada, right? So when I was growing up, I used to see him every morning do puja. Every morning he did the entire Rudravishek, and he was, that is what instilled spirituality in me. I'm still wearing one of his Rudraksha as a blessing from him. So when I went to the puja room, we had Om Namah Shivaya written in one of the walls, and I asked him, what is this mantra, Om Namah Shivaya? It was written in Devanagari, right, in Sanskrit. And I asked him, "You mantra ko meaning kiya ho?" And he told me that this each word, Om Namah Shivaya, each word has a depth of meaning. This is a question you have asked me. If I sit here and explain it to you, it is going to take for the rest of my life to explain it. But there are mantras that have been written by people who are very evolved in this. He didn't talk to me like this, but today when I reflect back to this is what he was saying. I'm just talking to you in a more evolved form, but the question that is being answered is what my question was when I was a child. So he told me in his own words, explaining to a child that each mantra each word of this mantra hold a very deep meaning, and there's no mantra like it. Om Namah Shivaya is a complete mantra in itself.
So you're saying when you break it up,
Om Namah Shivaya.
Shivaya.
So Omkaram Bindu Samyuktam Nityam Dhyayamti Yoginah Kamadam Mokshanam Chaiva Omkaraya Namo Namah. That is Om. Namantirisha Yodaiva Namantyapsara Samgadaha Nara Namanti Devesham Nakaraya Namo Namah. That is Nama. Ma Mahadevam Mahatmanam Mahadhanam Parayanam Mahapapaharam Devam Makaraya Namo Namah. She Shivam Santam Jagannatham Yokanugraha Karakam Shivamekapadam Nityam Shikaraya Namo Namah. Va Vahanam Trisabhoyasya Vasuki Kanda Bhushanam Bhami Sakridam Devam Vakaraya Namo Namah. Ya Yatra Yatra Sthito Deva Sarvavyapi Maheshwaraha Yoguru Sarvadevanam Yakaraya Namo Namah. This is the Sarakshara Stotram. The Sarakshara Stotram, so you have Panchakshari Stotram, but it misses out the Om. It starts with Nagendra Haraya Trilochanaya, Bhasmangarakaya Maheshwaraya, Nitya Suddhaya Digambaraya, Tasmai Nakaraya Namah Shivaya. Mandakini Salila Chandana Charchitaya, Nandi Swara Pramadhanata Maheshwaraya, Mandara Puspa Bahu Puspa Supujitaya, Tasmai Makaraya Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Gauri Vadrancha Vrinda, Surya Daksha Turanashakaya, Srinila Kantaya Trishadvajaya, Tasmai Shikaraya Namah Shivaya. Vasishta Kumbho Bhavagautamārya, Munindra Devarchid Sekaraya, Chandrarka Vaiswanar Lochanaya, Tasmai Vakaraya Namah Shivaya. Yajna Sarupaya Jatadharaya, Pinaka Hastaya Sanatanaya, Divyaya Devaya Digambaraya, Tasmai Yakaraya Namah Shivaya. So this is the Panchakshari mantra, the Sarakshara mantra. These are mantras. Omkaram. So when I was in Omkareshwar, this is the mantra that they offer to Omkar. Om. Na. So all of these mantras, the mantra of Om Namah Shivaya, it's a Sanatana Dharma in itself. If you and I start talking about Om Namah Shivaya, there's so many meanings to this word. But I truly believe Om Namah Shivaya is a mantra that anyone can do. And it is a mantra. Shiva is a destroyer. You have to understand, he's a destroyer of what? In the form of Rudra, he destroys. Shiva does not destroy. Shiva, when it takes the form of Rudra, you won't hear the word Shiva in Vedas. In Vedas, he is known as Rudra. As we come to the Puranic age, Rudra becomes Shiva. Today we know Shiva and Rudra as both stemming out of Sadashiva. Shiva as a cosmic, balancer. Rudra as the destroyer form of Rudra. That's why there is Rudraksha. There is no Shiva Aksha. Rudraksha is the transforming tool. That's why there is Rudrashtakam. That's why there is, Rudra when we say the Shiva Gayatri Mantra, explaining the relationship between Shiva and Mantra, Rudra, Tatpurushaya vidmahe Mahadevaya dhimahi tannu Rudra prachodayat. So we invoke the Tatpurush form of Lord Shiva, who is the east-facing Lord of Pashupatinath. Pashupatinath, the face that faces the east to the sun, is Tatpurush, right? Tatpurushaya vidmahe Mahadevaya dhimahi. Mahadeva is the invocation. And then Tannu Rudra, O Lord Shiva, in your form of Rudra, prachodayat, meaning show us the light. So when it destroys Shiva, so the reason I'm telling that Om Namah Shivaya is attainable to anyone is because Shiva is a destroyer in the form of Rudra. What is he destroying? He is destroying stagnation. He is destroying ego. He is destroying all the tamasics that hold us behind. The deep thoughts, the feeling of heartbreak, the feelings that are keeping us behind, the stagnant feelings, the tamasic gunas that he's holding, he's destroying. So chant the Om Namah Shivaya mantra so that Lord Shiva in his Rudra form is going to come into your life, destroy the negatives, and let creation begin again.
Love this.
Yes.
I've been waiting to do a Shiva podcast for the longest time. Want to talk more about the Om Namah Shivaya mantra.
Yeah.
I really, really feel that it's one of the most powerful tools that one can use to meditate.
Correct.
You can just sit in one place, close your eyes, just chant it in your mind.
Yeah.
Let the thoughts come and go. Try focusing on the mantra. Try focusing on a visual of Shivji right here in your own temple.
Yeah.
That's why it's called a temple.
Yeah.
Invite Shivji into your temple.
Yeah.
Would you want to talk a little bit about practical uses of this mantra, especially for the end listeners?
Yeah.
A young person dealing with heartbreak, dealing with failure, dealing with the feeling of hopelessness,
Yeah.
but feeling a sense of hope by listening to this podcast about Shiva.
Yeah. So worshipping Lord Shiva, right? It might feel overwhelming. You need a water, you need a glass, you need milk, you need Shivalinga, you need everything. There's a lot of material requirement in our minds that we need to start worshipping, but you just need a calm mind. And even not that, you just need a mantra, because mantra is overpowering enough that it calms your mind, right? You talked about surrender. You are replacing the thought with a mantra. So if you are dealing with anything, just close your mind. Om Namah Shivaya very practically has 5 words. Om Namah Shivaya, right? It is known as the Panchakshari mantra for that reason. So when I do the Manas Puja of Lord Shiva, the Na stands for the Sadyojat, the first face of Lord Shiva. So when I'm thinking about the Sadyojat Bhagwan, if you have visited Lord Pashupatinath, it's very easy because you can see the depiction. It's a Yajuman Linga Pashupatinath where you can see the faces of Lord Shiva. But even if you don't, imagine a Shiva Linga. Imagine one face of Lord Shiva in the Shiva Linga. That's the Sadyojat. That's the first form. And then do the Namash Na mantra. Then Ma for Bamdev on the left. Shi for the Aghor on the right. Va for the Tatpurush on the behind, looking at the sun, and Ya for the Ishan, the invisible form of Shiva. So you can even do a Shiva worship, a parikrama almost, through the Namah Shivaya mantra. The Namah Shivaya mantra, that's the reason it has 5 words, is because it represents the 5 faces of Lord Shiva as well. So as you understand, like I said, Sanatana Dharma is so deep that understanding the single word, understanding a single mantra is going to be enough for you. Bhairav, when we say the word Bhairav, right? Understanding the simple word Bhairav is going to be sufficient for you to understand the depth of Sanatana Dharma. Bha, creation. Ra, preservation. Va, destruction. Bhairav, right? When you say Bhaya, it's fear. Rava is the sound that destroys the fear. So Bhairav in itself is a deity that can destroy the fear of you. He's the form of Lord Shiva that does that, right? So mantra chanting for beginners is all about starting to first chant it. Then, like you said, understand what seems like a apparent meaning. Then start to understand the depth of it. Then you want to venture into the Bij mantras as you start to be, as you start to go deeper. And as you go towards the spectrum where words, meanings are beyond, and you start to go and climb that ladder, then you are starting to get closer to what we call as Shiva, what we feel as Shiva, or what we experience as Shiva, because he's everywhere, but still we can't see him. He's inside of us. We can feel Shiva.
When I was younger, I'd always question why my mom offers flowers or prasad while she's praying. Once I grew older and podcasted with people like yourself, I realized that these are more intricate practices of Sanatan Dharma, which you may or may not do at some point in your own journey. But what's more important than even those practices, especially for the beginners watching this, is one, the emotional connection to the deity,
Mhm.
two, the study of the deity, and three, some kind of practice related to the mantras.
Mhm.
And Om Namah Shivaya is a great starting point for Shiva Sadhana.
Correct.
Easier ways to enhance it, light a diya and do it.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe offer some kind of prasad to the diya. These little steps in that direction of ritual take you closer to the deity.
Yeah.
And ideally, at some point, if you're lucky, you'll find a guru who'll guide you through the intricate traditional ways of Sanatani worship.
Yeah.
Want to add to what I just said?
Yes. So first, you don't need anything to get started. You just need bhakti, but that's the most hard to find, like I said. But once you have that bhakti, by the grace of Lord Shiva, you are now inclined towards doing mantra. You're already in a much, much, much higher space than most people, right? But as you evolve, spiritual journey is all about evolution, right? You evolve, you want to make your process more practical. You want to make the process more, you want to enhance the process as well. So, Diya, we say Karma Shakhade Namaha, Deepa Narayana Namaha. Deepa is a form of Narayan, who is a Karma Shakhade, meaning he is the one who sees the karma. He's the Sakshi. He's a Sakshi, meaning he's the jury of our practice. We're lighting the diya to show that God is looking at us. So when we light the diya, we say Deepa Narayana Nama, Karma Sakhane Nama, Sriman Deepa Narayana Nama. Then we salute to the Lord of Surya. He is the Jagat Sakhane Nama. He's the one who is seeing the entire world, not just our small practice that we're doing, but he's the one who is Sakshi of the entire world. Then we do the Surya Namaskar, right? Then as you want to invoke the mantra, the first thing most practices recommend is the Gayatri Pranayam. Before you begin any Rudravishek, if it's a Karma Kanda priest who is following the very, very, very nuances of the practice, he has got to do a Gayatri Pranayam before he starts. Gayatri Pranayam is when you inhale the Gayatri Mantra, then capture the Gayatri Mantra on your third eye, then exhale the Gayatri Mantra.
How do you inhale it? Like you chant it in your head in one inhalation.
Yes.
Damn, dude. You did it thrice.
3 times, right?
Once during an inhalation, once while holding.
When you're in the temple, like you call it, or the third eye, you're installing it, then you're taking it out.
The normal Gayatri Mantra.
Normal Gayatri Mantra. This is the Gayatri Pranayam.
This is the first time hearing about this.
Right? So Gayatri Pranayam is very important in order to begin any kind of practical spiritual journey, right? It is when you purify yourself. The Gayatri Mantra it's one of the rare mantras which is for Bhagavad Priti. Gayatri Mantra does not offer any material benefit. For example, the 24-mukhi Rudraksha, which is representation of Gayatri, does not offer any material benefit. It is all about Bhagavad Priti, getting close to Bhagavad or the Parabrahma, right? So you inhale, you're setting your body, you're purifying the body. Like you said, body is the temple. So you do the Gayatri Pranayam. Then Bhasma Dharan is very important. We're not wearing Bhasma just for showcase. Bhasma carries a very, very deep meaning. If you don't have Bhasma, they say Jalaniti Bhasma. Just Jal, water. You can just apply water to your forehead like a Trikunda. Bhasma is very important. If you have the Bhasma, like you say, like I said, evolution is very important wherever you are. If you are, if you're invisible, then just imagine a Bhasma. It's doable. People tell me, hey, you are a person who always recommends Rudraksha. So people who can't buy Rudraksha or don't have Rudraksha don't do... No. Even if you don't have Bhasma or even if you don't have water, you can do it. Where are you in your journey matters. So then Bhasma, you apply Bhasma. It's very important to apply Bhasma. Then you start the chant. You always start the chant with Ganesh Mantra. There is a Panchayan. Even if you're doing... So I'm just giving a practical advice. Like I said, you can begin with in your bed with the Om Namah Shivaya. But if you want to do something that is a little bit more structured, but still practical enough, then remember the 5 Panchayans.
You're sharing a very powerful yet practical Shiva Sadhana right now.
Correct.
Go on.
So after doing the Gayatri Pranayam and after wearing the Bhasma, the first deity you invoke is going to be Ganesh. Om Gam Ganapataya Namaha is a very, very practical. Or Om Ganeshaya Namaha if you want to do, or Ganesh. Hey, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh. That is also a mantra. But for mantra, for Ganesh is one of the primary deities you need to invoke, right?
You have to say this mantra once.
You can, so there is numerology is also very important. Numbers is very important. You can say it 3 times, you can say it 1 time, 5 times, you can say it 16 times, 33 times, or 108 times, right? So these are the different numbers that you can say a mantra in. That's the reason Rudraksha, like for example, the bracelets or the malas are made in different counts, not random counts, because that's the number of mantras that you can do. You see people like myself, one of the malas that I wear is a single mala for my sadhana. That is because that's the one mantra that I do, right? So how many counts are you doing? That is important, but you can start with 1, or you can start with 3, or let's just say you can start with 5, right? Om Gam Ganapataya Nama, Om Gam Ganapataya Nama, Om Gam Ganapataya Nama, Om Gam Ganapataya Nama, Om Gam Ganapataya Nama. After chanting for Lord Ganesh, then if you are initiated, if you have the tools, you can do the Gayatri Mantra. Gayatri Mantra is extraordinarily important mantra for anyone who is into spiritual practice. What do I mean by when I say initiated? Why is initiation important? One of the great barriers that are being created in today's day is the concept of initiation, right? I might it might be a little bit controversial when I step into these boundaries, but initiation is more about wanting to make sure that the right words are chanted, or else negative consequences or negative invocations can be done. Therefore, you need a guru. Guru is a person who shows you light. Guru comes in different ways, shapes, and forms that allow us to chant the proper recitation or pronunciation of the mantra. Therefore, that is the reason you want to get initiated. Today, we have tools where we can listen, read, understand the proper pronunciation. So you might not need a physical guru. You might have a guru in the forms of other, resources. Even a book can be your guru, right? That's why we worship a book as a Saraswati, as a deity, as a Vidya, as a knowledge, as a guru. So if you are learned enough for the Gayatri Mantra, then do the Gayatri Mantra. You don't, like I said, chant it out loud, but do the Gayatri Mantra to invoke further energies as you're elevating higher. Then the third mantra needs to be one of the primary mantras of Lord Shiva. If you're a beginner, Om or Om Namah Shivaya. If you are into advanced sadhana, then the Shiva Gayatri Mantra is a very, very strong and a powerful mantra. Tatpurushaya vidmahe mahadeva adhimahi tanno rudra prachodayat. The Shiva Gayatri Mantra is very important. Then you do the Vishnu, Hari and Hara. Always, whenever we invoke Lord Shiva, Hari Hara, you have to always pray to Hara as well and Hari as well. Hari is Krishna or Vishnu, Hara is Shiva. Hari Hara, always, right? So then do mantra for Lord Vishnu, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namaha or Om Vishnave Namaha. Then after that, for Devi, Devi is also extremely important. Like I said, Shiva and Shakti always together. For Shakti, you can do as simple as Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namah, or Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvardha Sadike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Or you can do Om Lakshmi Namaha, Om Saraswati Namaha, Om Durga Devyai Namaha, or these kind of small mantras you can do, right? If you are using a bij like a Om Shrim Hrim Klim Glom mantras, then you would need tools like Rudraksha to chant those mantras. But if you're doing a normal Om Lakshmi Namah, you can chant it anywhere, anyhow, right? The reason I say Lakshmi Namah, not Saraswati or Durga Namah, is because according to Vedas, if we invoke Lakshmi, Saraswati and Durga are always happy. Okay, so that's the reason if you have to choose between one deity to invoke, because they all flow together, Mahalakshmi, Saraswati, Durga Devi, Kali, all of them are always together. But as you invoke Lakshmi, you can please the Devis. So you can say Om Lakshmi Namaha, okay, or Om Umayai Namaha. And lastly, you don't want to forget Lord Surya. Surya, like I said, is Jagat Sakre. For Surya, you can go as deep as Hey Surya Sahasram So Tejo Rasi Jagatpate Anupam Payam Bhakta Grihanargam Divakaraha, or just say Om Bhaskaraya Namaha.
Om Bhaskaraya Namaha.
Yes, Bhaskar is Surya. Om Suryaya Namaha for Surya. So this is a simple. And then lastly, one of the very powerful and one of my favorite mantras is Karacharana Kritamba Kayajam Karmajamva Sravana Nayanajamva Manasamba Aparadam Vihitama Vihitamva Sarva Etat Shamashva Jaya Jaya Karunabde Sri Mahadeva Sambho. This is Karacharana Kritamba Kayajam Karmajamva. Whatever I have done, I'm a sinful person who can commit many sins. Sravana Nayana Jamba, meaning from Shravan, from Nayan, or Manasamba Aparadam. Even from my Manas I can do Aparadam. Sarva etat shamashva, meaning forgive me, the one who can forgive me all of this. Jai Jai Karuna Abdhe Sri Mahadeva Sambho. With the amount of karuna that you have, Lord Shambho, Shiva, you are the only one who can forgive me of my sins through my mind, sins through my eyes, sins through my ears. So this is a mantra that you can end with, or you can just say Om Achyutaya Namaha, Om Achyutaya Namaha, Om Achyutaya Namaha, asking for forgiveness of anything that you might have done. As you progress, you introduce mantras like, Kayana vacha manasindriyarva buddhyatmanava prakrite svabhava karomi yadyam sakalam parasme narayana iti samarpayatat. So mantras that instill that, any karma that I might have done through me being a human, all of it is samarpan to Lord Vishnu, right? So these kind of forgiveness mantras you can ask, and then you can samarpan your entire sadhana to Krishna and then get done. Even if you don't have a bhasma, you can wear an invisible bhasma. Even if you don't have a Rudraksha, you can do a normal full mantra like Om Lakshmi Namaha. Don't use the beej, right? So starting does not have any requirement. If you want to evolve, then your evolution evolves with you. These sadhana give you the fruits that allow you to be able to attain higher spiritual realities.
Wow. This was one of the most powerful segments we've ever had on the podcast, because you literally gave out a whole Shiva Sadhana right now.
Yeah.
In an ideal case scenario, what are the tools needed?
In an ideal case scenario, it would be very good if you have water with you, which is very practical to do, because the first thing you do is Achamanim. Om Keshavaya Namah Swaha, Om Govindaya Namah Swaha, Narayana Namah Swaha, Om Vishnavaya Namah Swaha, or you can say the name of the Vedas, you can say any deity you do the Achamaniyam of, right? Water is very important. You always wash your hand after you lit the diya. The reason you wash your hand after you lit the diya is because the diya is known as the mouth of the god as well. He eats. That's why you do homa, right? Lord or Devi eat through the fire. So if you are considering that they eat through the fire, you also need to consider that that is a mouth. If you're touching the fire, then you're touching the mouth of the deity. Then when you touch the mouth, what you do after you eat? You wash your hands. So that's the reason you wash your hands as well. You have to be so involved and so in depth and so into the sadhana that you are, you can literally realize that that is a deity that you are just touching, the mouth of the deity. Hence, you have to wash your hands, right? So for water is a very important aspect. Bhasma is also very important. Bhasma, chandan. That's the reason one of the little efforts that I've done to aid this is, whenever people get Rudraksha from Nepa, Rudraksha from us, I like to say that anywhere you get Rudraksha from, ensure that you ask for this at least is, Bhasma or Chandan, because that is very important for you to do any kind of sadhana, right? So being able to apply those in the forehead is very important. It has deep spiritual meaning. After that, Rudraksha, of course. Wearing Rudraksha is said to be one of the most powerful tools, not only to harvest or capture the blessings of the mantras that you just did, the sadhanas, but also initiate you automatically into being able to do Bij mantras. Bij mantra open a completely new dimension of your sadhana, right? So that is what is started. For example, if you wear the 14-mukhi Rudraksha, you can do the Bij mantra for the 14-mukhi Rudraksha. Right? As you wear the 21-mukhi, you can do the Kuber Bij mantras as well. So these kind of Bij mantras you get started to. So as you progress in your sadhana, ideally Rudraksha is always, in Devi Bhagavad Purana, it goes to an extent where it said any Vedic rites need Rudraksha to be worn to perform that rite. I like to say that probably means a Vedic ceremony in a very, very, formal manner. It definitely needs a Rudraksha. That's the reason Jyotirlings, Pashupatinath, the worshippers are always wearing Rudraksha. But if you're just starting on, you don't need it. If you're evolving, if you're going higher into your sadhana, then you start to need these tools like Rudrakshas, right? Then the mantras evolve. Then your Even mudras are important. When you do a puja, you do the Sankha mudra, you do the Matsya mudra, you do the Ankusa mudra. Ankusa mudra is when you're connecting the two worlds of Devs and our words together, Ankusa mudras, right? So you could do the Pavitra mudra of, making the cows, thun, or what you call it,
Ados.
yes. So that is what you do with you do yoni mudras. There are so many mudras that you do. This is a form of tantra, because tantra, like I said, everything, mantra, tantra, yantra, are always evolved. Then you need yantras, then you need rudrakshas, then you need shivalingas. As you go deeper, there is so much things that you need in your sadhana. But to get started, do you need these? No. You can get started with as a mind, a clear mind, and a bhakti. Bhakti is very important. That's the reason I talked a little bit about karma, is because your karma, not only of this life, but of past life, is important for you to get started into sadhana.
Or listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
First time Nepal has been brought up on the show in this manner.
Yeah.
Had a lot of adventure stories and all that, but never heard too much on the show about the tantric side of Nepal. More tangential questions. Have you seen Doctor Strange?
I have.
Yeah. I really believe that Doctor Strange is based on some kind of a real place in Nepal. He goes to Nepal, right?
He does go to Nepal, yeah.
How do people in Nepal feel about Doctor Strange?
I don't know the exacts of how they felt. I watch movies. I have watched Doctor Strange, but if you ask me about what happens in that movie, I would not be able to answer.
He's basically trained by
Nepali monk.
Yeah, spiritual beings in order to increase his own potential as a human being, which is effectively what Tantra is.
Yeah.
The first Doctor Strange, which blew away the whole world, I believe is loosely based on a lot of tantric concepts about bending reality, bending time, etc.
Yeah.
A lot of Bhairav energy in that film, according to me.
Yeah. Tantra, again, like I said, mantra, tantra is also a very deep concept. But if you understand the meaning of the word, it becomes more practical to understand. Tan is to weave. Tan is a word in Ved that means in Sanskrit to weave. You weave. Tra is, like I said, an instrument, a weaving instrument. What are you weaving? What are you weaving in Tantra? You're weaving Shiva and Shakti. Through yourself, through the use of things around you, you are weaving your way and path towards Shiva, using the Shakti around you. Shakti sadhana is very important in Tantra. Therefore, even the Buddhists practice Taleju Bhavani worship. Even the Hindus practice Taleju Bhavani worship, because Tantra is, very, very foundational in Sanatana Dharma as well as in Nepal. Tantra is to weave. Now, Doctor Strange, with using his instruments, he's showcasing a bending of reality. But what are you bending? You're bending the energies to harness a new reality. That is Tantra. Tantra is all about weaving, but weaving through Tan meaning body. So in Tantra, you as well as the other, aspects of the things around you are very important. So your environment as well as you become very important. It is Advaita. It does, Tantra practice does believe that there is no difference between you and the entire consciousness, but it does also believe that using the things, around you, the Shakti around you, Shiva within can be found.
We had Yashodeep Deodhar sir on the show recently, who is retelling the legitimate Valmiki Ramayana on the show. And in the second episode of the series, he spoke about how at the time of the Ramayana, according to Rishi Valmiki, people of Sanatan Dharma ate deer meat. So people were non-vegetarian even back then.
Now, Bhagavad Gita, one of the things that it mentions on non-veg, and like I said, there might be different interpretations to the same thing. Bhagavad Gita mentions that as long as you do things with me in your mind, I accept anything. There are stories of Lord Shiva. I'm deviating a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. Lord Shiva, where meat was offered to the Shivalinga, and Lord Shiva accepted it gladly, because the bhav is the most important. A very strict non-vegetarian who has been born into a family of non-vegetarianism can go very deep into Sanatana Dharma, go very deep into the spiritual aspect if their bhav is clean. You start to see a single reality around you. Meat becomes an aspect of your reality only. It does not have to, go about what happened or this kind of like the depths of it. I also like to believe about the feelings, about other things that people are emotionally attached to the animals, that sacrificing them or eating them might not feel right. And I totally empathize with that as well. But I like to understand that Sanatana Dharma has a lot of depths, has a lot of its own reasoning. So judging the other person from my perspective, maybe I'm a vegetarianism judging the non-veg, or being a non-veg judging the vegetarianism or people, is just an obstacle to your own spiritual journey. Focus on yourself.
We briefly mentioned the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra.
Mhm.
It's been one of the most powerful experiences of my life, learning about this mantra through the show and chanting it once daily. Not too many people I have met associated with Shiva the deity out and out.
Mhm.
Some do, some don't. I've always noticed this. Can you first clear the air on that?
So it is true. Maha Mrityunjaya can be both Vishnu as well as Shiva. Whoever is beyond the circle of life and death is a Maha Mrityunjaya. Maha Mrityunjaya, when I worship, by the grace of Lord Shiva, I try to do my own sadhana as well, right? When I worship Shaligram and Shivalinga, we worship it together, Vishnu and Shiva, right? If I have to offer only one flower to Shiva and Shaligram, Vishnu and Shiva, I can chant the Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarugam Vandananam Mrityurmukshe Mahamritat and offer it. Because Mrityunjaya, both Shiva and Vishnu are. But when we go deeper, the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra does ultimately track down to Lord Shiva in more of a Lord Shiva mantra, because again, what is it doing? The act of the mantra is to Vijaya from Mrityu Bhaya, the fear of death.
Let's break down the mantra to understand it better.
So, Om Trambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Vandananam Mrityor Mukshaya Mahamritat is Om Trambakesh. The Trambakeshwar is also a Jyotirlinga, but Trem is a word that is signifying the three-eyed Lord. The first stanza, the first portion of this mantra is to invoke. Always a mantra starts from invocation, meditation, then ask. What is the ask? The meaning of the mantra is in the ask. What is the mantra asking? What is the mantra calling for? Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra is to Mrityor Mukshaya Mahamritat. Give me the moksha from the bhaya or fear of death, the cycle of birth and death. O three-eyed Lord Shiva, if you just understand it simply, then it is all about bowing down to Lord Shiva, who has three eyes. It means non-dual, not right, wrong. He's the one who's, like I said in our previous segment, there's nothing right or wrong. There's non-dual reality, right? Invoking him for us to get away from the fear of death. The most advanced, like I said, there is kleshas, or there are obstruction to spiritual realization, such as avidya, ashmita, ego. Avidya, ignorance, ashmita, ego, raga, attachment, dvesha, aversion. But the most ultimate is fear of death. I will talk about why that connects to Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. I have to talk about fear of death first, because the mantra is invoking us to elevate the fear of death. Fear of death is very important in a concept. It's not about wanting to increase the span of life. Sanatana Dharma does not advocate increasing the span of life from 100 years to 200 years, then 300 years. That is not the reason we do Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. We do it because we realize that birth is an opportunity to evolve, and an opportunity to transform ourselves physically and spiritually, have the material desires fulfilled, at the same time spiritually advance as well, right? One thing that can obstruct this is attachment to the self. You become attached as you as Ranveer. I can become attached as myself as Sukritya. Because now I start to attach myself. Now I start to think, what happens if Sukritya is no longer there? Then I'm no longer there. Right? Fear of death comes when you attach to yourself. The attachment, the highest level of attachment is the attachment to the self. You as Ranveer are the highest level of attachment of yours. Right? The elimination of that attachment is the elimination of fear of death. Because when you understand that you are not Ranveer or I'm not Sukritya, I'm more than that. I'm eternal. I have that eternal side in me. Then you don't care about Ranveer ultimately getting old and going away. Right? I don't care about me ultimately getting old and going away. Because when I realize that I'm more than that, the fear of that goes away. How do we realize that? Is it a realization through a podcast? It's very difficult to realize that from a podcast. You realize that when you install the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra within you. When you do this Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra, for some, first, like I said, first is all about repetition without understanding. Then you understand the meaning of it in our human language. But when you go beyond the human language, then the mantra install this understanding and these these nuances of life into you, that one day you wake up and realize that there is something that is beyond what you call as Ranveer or what I call as Sukritya. And then the Mahamrityunjaya Mantra has come and blessed you. Then you become fearless of death. That does not mean you climb up to the 100th floor and then start to jump because you're not fearless. That becomes when you start to act on things without the attachment to yourself. When you start to do things just because those things are needed to be done, not because you are attaching it to you, your pride, your longevity. Your longevity is not just about your longevity as Ranveer for 80, 90, 100. May God bless it and become 200. But it's also about your legacy. You become now attached to your legacy. Then you become attached to your, family, generation. The attachment is overflowing. The Mahamrityunjaya Mantra is all about realizing that your Mrityu is not just when you end. You are an eternal being. Do what is needed for you to evolve. Don't get attached yet.
Om Triambakam Yajamahe
Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvaharukamiva Vandanana Mrityormukshaya Mahamritat.
Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam.
Pushtivardhanam is all about Sugandhim is
Fragrance.
very fragrant, very, when we describe Lord Shiva, when we invoke the deity, we always applaud the deity. We always tell about the charming characteristics of the deity. Pushtivardhanam is the one who gives us, Pushti is all about health, good health, good health, longevity, good, senses, good qualities in us. Pushtivardhanam, Urvarukumandhananam, Mrityormukshya Mamritat is about giving us eliminating the fear of death. But the depth of the meaning is all about non-attachments.
Urva Rukamiva Bandhana, I think, is a gourd, right? Like it's a vegetable.
Yes, it is. It is a symbolic representation of the vegetable is connected to the vines. So it is a representation that don't get attached. Let me not be attached to the to that like the vegetable is attached to the vine. Let me not be attached to that like that. Yeah. So it's about the non-attachment. It can be understood as let me not be attached to the to the lifestyle, to me as Sukritya. So Urvarukumivandhananam Mrityormukshya Mamritat serves that purpose.
Gotcha. Now for a Gen Z way to explain this mantra.
Yeah.
I'll talk about what I felt after I started chanting the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra.
Yeah.
A sense of providence or God's blessings on me is the obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
You feel more of a presence of Lord Shiva in your life.
Yeah.
Because of that, you feel a sense of calm. You feel the presence of a cooler head than you had before the mantra entered your life. But you know how there's this very cliched saying that if you're really searching for love or a relationship in your life, it's probably not going to find you if you're running behind it.
Correct.
But when you're just living your life and doing your own thing, then love will come chasing you when the time is right. You become very aware of that feeling, not just when it comes to love, but when it comes to all the wants and wishes of your own life. Not being too attached to your own wants and wishes.
Yeah.
Which is why personally, I'm not a very big fan of manifesting things.
Yeah.
Feel that attaches you too much to Mayajal.
Yeah.
Just want God, everything else will follow. Maybe that's a very Gen Z way of explaining it.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything?
I agree to that 100%. And when you ask me this question, I start to realize the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra is often associated with the 16 Mukhi Rudraksha, which is often used for Rahu. That attachment that you say, astrologically, astrology is a very easy way for us to identify the self. The use of astrology has been now being used to predict things, predict events, predict, it's not a prediction of events, it's a prediction of tendencies. What is the tendencies of yours? It is a map, not for you to think about what you will do next, because that is up to you, your karmas. But what are you likely to do? What are you likely to get attached to? The Rahu in your birth chart is what you get attached to. Some people get attached to feelings, some people get attached to alcohol, some people get attached to wealth, some people attached to manifestations,
Some people get attached to themselves.
get attached to themselves. That's the biggest forms of attachments, right? So the Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra, like you rightly said, is to get rid of your attachment and then live a more free life. Because when you realize that you're no longer attached to these leech or these things that suck your attention, you become free.
Gotcha. Essence of Shiva.
Essence of Shiva.
Detachment?
Detachment, not because you want to renunciate. Detachment because there's so much more.
I think his blessings hit your life in a very explosive manner. Like there's too much explosivity in terms of the blessings. So your prayers to him are always answered in a heavier way than you've asked.
Yeah.
That's what I've felt.
Yeah.
I've actually hosted another very successful YouTuber. His name's Amit Bhadana. He spoke about this a lot. He's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world of Desi YouTube. Very respected guy in the YouTube community. He says, he's more of a bhakti path person when it comes to Shiva. He said that he's noticed that whenever he prayed to Shiva for anything, that gift is given to him tenfold.
No.
It's given to him with such intensity that he loses love for the gift.
Yeah.
Gets detached from what he once begged for.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of explaining what Shiva is.
Very. Because the cycle, the moksha pradayaka is Shiva. There's a lot of people who come to me, who, by the grace of Lord Shiva, they're sent to me, who want to, who fear renunciation. They say, hey, I want to get into the path of sadhana. I want to wear Rudraksha. I want to go higher. But what if I leave everything?
Will there be negative side effects of sadhana?
Sadhana, right? Will I leave everything? What if I leave my family? See, until and unless, and Shiva Purana mentions this, you don't have to believe this through me. Shiva Purana mentions this, that until and unless your desires are fulfilled, you will never be able to renunciate. Right? So Shiva makes sure that those are fulfilled. That's the reason. The main thing when Shiva explains Rudraksha is bhukti and mukti. When you read Shiva Purana or any of the text, you will feel amazed that why is a God promising me so much material? Why your success will happen, your material desire will be fulfilled, your life will be comfortable. Why is it I should always feel ascetic and be renunciating? But because your material fulfillment is required, because see, you are made with flesh and you are installed within it, both need fulfillment. So Lord Shiva makes sure that you're so fulfilled that desire of yours is no longer there. You move on to the next. So, yeah.
No harm in wanting to be a billionaire.
No harm in no harm in becoming a billionaire if that is a byproduct.
Har Har Mahadev.
Har Har Mahadev.
Is there anything else you'd like to cover in the episode?
I think the questions you've asked, these are questions that a lot of people will have in their spiritual journey. As they evolve in their spiritual journey, as they go through it. I had the same questions. And as a contribution, as my way of documenting the answers that I found throughout the way, I've been writing a book. It's called The Transformation of Your Life Through Rudraksha. But it's so much beyond and more about, it's a lot about Rudraksha, but it also explains the process of transformation. All we talked about is all about transforming ourselves, becoming better, taking good decisions. Lots of questions. I've tried and put my documentation of my own pathway into this book.
All I'll say is that every conversation with you is extremely stimulating. Sukritya bhai, thank you for your time. All the best with everything that's aligned for you over the next period of Kal.
Mhm.
Uh, and man, honestly, there's very few people that I meet on the show uh, with whom conversation feels this stimulating. Like I'm wearing a whoop, so it monitors my stress. And I've noticed that in some of my best conversations where I'm really, really having fun, my stress levels drop very deeply. I can literally feel it in my body. I was having a very difficult day, but you're younger than me. You're like 6 years younger than me, but speaking to you feels like a blessing because of the knowledge that you hold.
Thank you. And your questions are so thought provoking that it feels a blessing to be able to have a conversation with you. And I really appreciate you doing this, helping the younger generations as well as the older generations, any humankind attain what we know as knowledge and help themselves. So thank you so much for creating this platform. Thank you to your team who do this, who serve a great purpose in the world of Sanatana.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother. Jai Mahakal.
Thank you. Har Har Mahadev.
Har Har Mahadev. That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. Would love to hear your feedback. Would love to know what you thought of this in depth podcast, because this is what the entire year is going to be all about. We've already covered the basics of Tantra, the basics of sadhana, stories about Sanatan Dharma, the philosophies related to Sanatan Dharma. In my eyes, it's time to go deeper, both in terms of understanding, but especially also in terms of practice. That's why we created this episode. All of Sukritya Bhai's details are linked down below. Make sure to support a young entrepreneur like him. Lots more coming your way on the Ranveer Show, including perhaps some documentaries very, very soon. More on this later. Just want to say thank you for all the support and to all of you listening in to this podcast until this point. Har Har Mahadev.